Welcome to Surviving the Side Hustle, the show where driven entrepreneurs share the real stories, the real honest struggles, and the hard-won secrets behind performing at their best. I'm your host, Rob Tracy, a personal performance strategist and the founder of TAPS Coaching, where I partner with entrepreneurs to turn real effort into real momentum. Every week, I sit down with an owner-operator who's building something of their own, and we get past the highlight reel to find out what's actually working. Because the truth is, most people don't need more. They need to pay attention to what works for them and do more of that. So whatever you're building, let's stop spinning and start winning. We'll jump into the show right after this. If you're an entrepreneur or owner-operator who's working hard but feeling stuck spinning your wheels instead of building real momentum, I'd love to help. I want to invite you to a free strategy session with one of our performance strategists. We'll help you see what's actually working, what's holding you back, and the clearest next step to get your momentum going again. To claim your free strategy session, head over to survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. Again, that's survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. We'd love to talk to you. And now back to the episode. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. Today's guest is Joe Wyrwas. I said that correctly, Joe?
Did. Thank you, Rob.
All right. Awesome. And to give a little background on who Joe is, he is a leadership development coach who helps individuals and organizations build stronger cultures, better decision-making systems, and more aligned teams. Joe's journey into leadership started early, from running programs in high school to developing leadership experiences in college and working in tech consulting, before eventually launching his own coaching business to make a larger impact. Today's conversation, I'm looking to dive into and talk about leadership, prioritization, burnout, and one of the most interesting things I've ever heard in a while, about how Joe actually tracked his life down to the minute for 4 years. So excited to dive in. Joe, man, welcome to Surviving the Side Hustle.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Excited to be here today.
Yeah. I would love to kind of kick things off here, because you had mentioned to me that the leadership development has been a lifelong journey for you. And I want to kind of dive in and ask him, like, where did that really begin?
Sure. So I always saw myself as that quiet, smart kid that wanted to get stuff done, but that's all I saw myself as. And luckily, I had this opportunity in high school, summer after my sophomore year, 10-day leadership development program. And it was the first time that I recognized that I had some skills within me. I had abilities. I had this inner confidence that I could bring out to actually make change, to get people to accomplish something with me. And those 10 days were foundational to who I am still to this day. I learned tactical skills, learned inner confidence, and just it set me on this journey, as you mentioned, that has been just this joy to now give back and create the same learning opportunities for other people as well.
Wow. So that kicked you off right from the early days, and you're still reflecting on that to today and how it's impacting you and impacting so many other people. That's a pretty wild course, or 10-day adventure you had gone on.
Yeah, yeah. And it was run by the Archdiocese of Baltimore here in Maryland. And it was faith-based, but it also was very much personal development and leadership based. They literally had us plan a camping trip for 2 days. And if you forgot food, well, you forgot food. You had to plan meetings. You had to really dive into actually practicing what they were teaching. And it was such a cool experience, because I look back at some of the failures we had as a team of 50-ish high school students. And those moments just shape how I show up and how I help others show up and what I really try to have them focus on.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I imagine, I can hear that that's a pretty strong foundation, but I imagine that's not only what you teach and help people develop now. So I'm interested to kind of hear, like, so What are some of the evolutions maybe of some of the concepts or ideas from what you started back there in high school to what you're teaching now?
Sure. So I love to describe what I bring as a toolbox because just like a carpenter, there's many different situations and there's many different tools that I can help you develop and I can bring myself to our coaching, to our leadership development training. The foundation I use no matter what is we always got to start with ourselves. We need to really look internally, understand who we are, what do we bring to the table, what are our passions, what are modes of operating, and that's the foundation I always start with. Then, of course, if you're leading, you need to be able to work with others. And so the second foundation I always work on, how do you communicate with others? How do you collaborate with others? How do you really get deep into effective communication, collaboration, feedback, all those different things? And then the third part is always about your why, your purpose. Sure, we want to be the best leaders, we want to be our best selves, we want to go make a difference. But really centering on that larger purpose is the through line of all the work I do. And so that's the foundation I use with all my leadership trainings, all my one on one coaching, and all my keynotes. And then, of course, there's those different tools in the toolbox. What are we really trying to dig in today? Are we not the best at one on one communication? Do we not even understand how someone else thinks and how they're showing up to this team? Do we actually have a process that works for tracking the work and the metrics we're doing? And so, depending on that team, depending on that company, really understanding their needs, their problem space, and also their strengths, because I'm a firm believer in strengths based leadership as well. And then unpacking, taking my tools, giving them some tools, and then working towards that best version of their self, their team, and their company that they're looking for.
So it sounds like the main framework for what you're doing is like helping somebody connect better with themselves, better with others, and then really attaching the driving factor to why it's important to connect. And then you have these different exercises and tools to kind of develop that or deepen those connections, I guess.
Yeah, both develop and deepen at that personal level, getting to that deeper thought pattern. How do I actually think, feel, and approach all these situations? And then make it more effective and efficient as I'm approaching leadership or just general connections with people on my team or with people below or above me in leadership as well.
So I imagine you encounter people all the time who are like, "Oh, you know what? I'm pretty good at communicating and connecting. The team's okay." Like, how do you kind of explain to them like, "Hey, like this is stuff that not only makes you a better person, but makes like a ripple effect for everybody in society." Like, how do you connect with those people? How do you overcome people who are like, "You know what? I'm already too good at this stuff. I don't need your help."
Yeah, I'd answer it in two ways. One, if someone has that mindset that they're not looking to grow, they're not looking to become more, and they think that they're that 100% polished person, they're not the person I want to work with. Because even where I am now, having the experiences and successes, I'm still on a very long growth journey. I'm going to be done growing when I'm in the ground. And so that's one of my core philosophies that if you're not willing to learn and continue to grow, then you're not the right person for me. But to the heart of your question, when someone has that inkling, but they're not quite sure where to start or really sometimes have a lot of blind spots, that's where that one-on-one coaching comes in. Creating a space and an opportunity for them to really authentically share who they are, the challenges they might be having, and really digging in. I love listening to the words people use. And then when you reflect those words back to them, you can get to a deeper, deeper level many times. I've heard people talk about the work they're doing, but then they use the words like sacrifice and struggle, and so it's when you start pointing out those almost Freudian slips and you really challenge them to think about why they're using certain words, why they're having certain thoughts, that's when we can start getting to the deeper meaning and those deeper levels of growth that you were asking about.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like I feel like sometime, like, when you first connect with somebody, it's like, "Oh, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing good," or blah, blah, blah. Like, it's always like kind of like a default kind of answer. Sometimes I try to like think about that and kind of be like, "No, I'm doing great." Like I'm consciously at least on some degree aware of some of the words that I'm saying, and I try to make sure that I'm using better words to kind of pull me forward as a person who's growing, as a coach who's learning and getting better. So I love that you're helping kind of pull these things out and bringing awareness to some of that. But I would ask you, so like, okay, so you took that in school, like what was the point where you were like, all right, you know what, this is something that I can be teaching or should be teaching to other people? And when did you decide to like turn this into a business?
Sure. And I always say to people, it's never too late to start in anything you want to do. So in college, as you mentioned, got to create leadership development programs for other undergrad and grad students on campus, 4-day conferences, 1-day seminars. It was amazing. Going into the tech world, I'm here delivering software. I'm leading teams delivering software. I used a lot of concepts to really help drive those teams and efforts forward, but I never had that opportunity to really, at 100% level, give back and create learning and growth opportunities. So on the side, I've been involved in nonprofit volunteer work for 13 years, particularly in the high school youth leadership space. And that was my opportunity to take what I was good at, what I loved, and give back. But to your question, about 2 years ago, I finally said, Joe, enough is enough. You've been talking about doing this as not a side hustle or a side hobby, but something that will drive and be the main thread of your life. And so 2 years ago, finally started my LLC, finally started putting work in, and just took all those past experiences and said, sure, maybe I wasn't getting paid for them. Maybe I can't claim these companies as quote clients, but here is the body of work I've done for 15 plus years. Now let's expand on that. Now let's run with it as a paid hustle, as a chance, not just to get paid, but to create many more opportunities of growth, of development, of leadership for all these organizations that I now get to partner with. And so, again, as I said, it's never too late to start. And I don't live in regret because I recognize all the work I've done for the past 15 plus years got me to these moments now.
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes when I'm reflecting, I like to consider like, okay, well, where am I at? How am I moving? And sometimes I'll get myself caught up in like comparison, like, oh, I should be further down the road, or this isn't quite done yet. And then I try to calm myself down and being like, hey, well, I think I'm moving at a pretty solid pace. And the fact that I'm still moving forward with everything that I'm doing, that's got to be a huge sign too. Because I just remember the times when I was suffering through extreme burnout and I was just like beating my head against the wall and was like couldn't understand why I wasn't like progressing. And it was the same stuff every single day and I was just so exhausted. So I think just progress is huge, and then being aware of like, hey, you're moving is still a healthy thing, like you're going in the right direction is powerful.
Definitely, definitely.
So who are you working with specifically now? Is it still nonprofits, or are you working with more like who are your one-on-one coaches or clients that you're coaching, and who are these organizations that you're coming in to teach these systems and processes?
Sure. So, two of the primary industries I'm working on are nonprofits. I love continuing to give back, either doing some pro bono work or doing heavily discounted work just to continue to spread goodness into the world and help organizations that have positive missions. And then a large other chunk of my work is obviously in the software and tech space. Companies that are delivering in the Maryland, Baltimore region, particularly, but I do work virtually as well. And so, with my background running and leading software development teams, it's a natural progression to say, cool, I'm not here to help build new software systems for you. Instead, I'm here to help your people that do that. And let's bring them to the next level. Let's make them even better. And so, those are my two primary focuses. But of course, with business, particularly with coaching, as I get out into the world, there are other companies I'm working with that are completely outside those niches. And it's always interesting and fun to recognize that a lot of these concepts, they're perfect across the board. It doesn't have to be a software company. It doesn't have to be a mission of nonprofits. And so just having those opportunities to continue to give back has been really fun across the board.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome stuff. And when you're working with these organizations, what do you see is one of the more common issues that you continue to run into that a lot of these like leaders or growing companies kind of come to you struggling with? Is it just the communicating between the team, or like what specifically do you see as like the through line problem that a lot of growing people and companies are looking for?
Sure. So the number one problem I'm seeing right now is uncertainty. Just uncertainty in the world, uncertainty in markets, uncertainty in will I have a job in the next couple years, particularly because of AI. And so with uncertainty, I've been working with a lot of leaders to help them create a better foundation for their employees to remove as much uncertainty as possible. And ways we do that are things like communication. What are you actually communicating to your team, to your company to help them feel a little bit more stable, help them feel like the world's not falling apart within their company, let alone around them in the world too. And the other one is really that clarity and openness piece. So many leaders are afraid to admit what's going on because they're afraid to look like they don't know what they're doing. They're afraid to seem like they're failing. And so a lot of the one-on-one coaching I do is helping leaders find the balance of communicating open, clearly, and upfront about those challenges that they're experiencing, about the things potentially coming down the pipeline that will impact the company, that will impact their employees. But again, finding that balance. You don't want to set the ship on fire when it's not on fire yet. But if it's starting to be and you have a plan to put it out and you don't tell your employees, they're going to jump ship because they see a fire. They don't know what's going on and they have no confidence that you as a leader really have their best influence. And so the number one challenge right now, I would say for many, many, maybe all companies, is that uncertainty of the world, particularly around I. And so that's where, again, communication is the number one key thing. How you communicate across, up, and down really defines your culture and defines if people are going to stay through that uncertainty or not.
Yeah, well, that's definitely one of the biggest fears that I also see too is it's the fear of the uncertainty, but then it's also just the presence of uncertainty too. It's like what like not knowing and not understanding how to progress or move or change or all of the above. So personally for yourself, like how do you deal with it, the feelings or the feeling of maybe even being behind or trying to or just moving forward? Like how do you handle uncertainty yourself personally?
Sure. So, one of the things that I've built into my life is acknowledging and centering all my feelings. I'm a very, very thinking guy. And for my entire life, I always thought about feelings, but I never gave myself a chance to actually think about and then process and emote around the feelings and emotions I was having. And so, one of my daily practices that I do at least once, sometimes two or three times a day, is to acknowledge the feelings I'm having, maybe around uncertainty, maybe around doubt, maybe around just whatever's going on in my life and bringing that to the forefront, really acknowledging, hey, right now I'm uncertain if I'm on the correct path with all this craziness in the world. Maybe I should go back and just focus on a 9 to 5 job. And when you bring that to the surface, you can really then start playing with it, both in your body and in your mind. The brain is such a crazy, wonderful thing where we can actually manipulate how we feel. And so when I acknowledge uncertainty, I ask myself, okay, is this feeling serving me right now? Is there anything I can do about this feeling? And so many times it's, well, no, I can't control the world. Maybe I can take a couple action steps for my business, but I can't do anything with the rest. And so then doing some meditation, doing some breathing exercises helps recenter my energy, recenter my emotions, recenter my thoughts. And then you transition that into action. Cool. All right. I'm still a little uncertain that I'm on the right path for my business, but what are the one or two steps that I can take right now in the next hour and next couple hours to move myself in a little bit better of a mind frame to feel like I have positive momentum. And so that's what my daily practice is now with uncertainty, with doubt, with fear, with any of those negative emotions. And then that's how you transition from being in that stuck state into let's do action. Let's get it done. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, wow. I really love that because I'm a huge believer of how I position awareness first and foremost on a lot of different things. And because that's how you know whether or not the action you're taking is the right action to be doing. So I think awareness really starts with everything. And that's like goes back to like even just when you're upset or angry or you're just feeling these different kinds of emotions, trying to slow down and trying to like label the emotion and trying to understand like what's going on at least helps me with when things happen, whether a client cancels, a new person comes on, like slowing down, like, yeah, I'm excited. Let me chill for a second. Let me embrace this and let me recognize this instead of just getting carried away doing different things. So I really love that you said that. But I really want to get into now talking about that whole time period where you were tracking every minute of your life. Can you Hey, what's up? Sorry for the interruption. It's Rob. One quick thing before we keep going. If you're feeling stuck or like you've lost the momentum that you used to have, here's a simple, free first step. Take the assessment at gettheprime.com. In just a few minutes, it'll show you exactly where you're leaking momentum so you can get that ball rolling again with the Prime app. It's completely free. So if you're new here, this is the best place to start. Go ahead to gettheprime.com and take the free assessment. All right, let's get back into it. Dive into that a little bit.
Sure. So for most people, 2020, life slowed down and we had so much more time. Unfortunately for me, I filled it with a lot of stupid things like video games and TV. And then I got to 2021 and realized, wow, what am I doing with my life? I have some general ideas, but I don't really know where my focus, my time, and energy go. I'm a tech guy, so I created myself this little web application that allowed me to literally just say, okay, right now I'm going for a run or I'm watching TV, I'm taking a nap, I'm taking a shower, things like that. 25 rough categories. And so every single time I had a context switch, pull up the app, click it, move on with life. Well, I did it for 4 years because I said, why not? Let's keep it going. But after about a year, and really even after those 4 years, I realized that three things. One, tracking anything takes time. We love tracking steps. We love tracking weight. We love tracking the things we eat. That takes time. And so recognizing that, hey, I'm spending all this time pulling up an app, switching what I'm doing, I realized each year, 10, 15 hours just tracking what the heck I'm doing. And it's ironic because I was so worried, concerned, what am I doing with my life? And so the second thing that I really had this revelation about was many times we have gut feelings about what's already off. I was volunteering way too much in 2022 and 23, 500 plus hours, part time job in a volunteer role. I knew that that was too much, and the time showed me based on what I was tracking, but I didn't need to track all that to feel that misalignment. And so the second lesson I had was we already have misalignments in our life. We already know we watch too much TV, we don't read enough, we're on Instagram doom scrolling, maybe a couple hours too many before we go to bed. And so the third major lesson I had and why I finally ended the experiment after 4 years, what are we doing with all this data? What are we doing with our lives that we're making or not making systematic changes? And for me, what I realized was I spent 4 years down to the minute tracking every single thing but didn't make any big changes in my life. I cut out social media a little bit. I watched a little bit less TV. I read a little bit more, but I didn't use all of that data for meaningful change. And that's when I said, Joe, one, let's stop tracking. Two, let's actually go to that gut and figure out what do we need to change in our lives. And so that's when I started deleting social media apps. That's when I would go hide my remote from my TV to not watch it. I'd put a book on my pillow so I'd start reading a little bit more. And so those were the learning lessons that I would say you don't need to track your life for even a year. You definitely probably don't even need to track your steps because for most people, it becomes this fun thing, but it doesn't change our lives.
Yeah, I like that. And I think we're in a society or a culture now, especially with AI and the access to information and the internet. Information alone isn't what's going to make the changes. It's more of that organization, the implementation, and actually doing that. So going back to what we were saying before, I still believe like having an awareness of it, like, hey, you want to be a little more active, like knowing that you should probably track your steps or doing like when maybe paying attention to how many times you're going to the gym or whatever it is. But that information shouldn't just be the end all be all. Like you should be able to move from that information into some action and stuff like that. So why do you think so many like business leaders who are trying to grow with their team or their business itself, like they should be focusing on that action step, but maybe they're busy tracking too much, or like where do you see most of these leaders kind of falling into? Is it like maybe too much action without the awareness, or vice versa?
Both. It's really that balance. Some people, some companies, some leaders are making choices with almost no data whatsoever. They're just going from a gut or the first thing they hear or read. And then on the other end, it's how many dashboards and Kanban boards and reports and status meetings do you have on a weekly basis? What are we doing? And so it's finding that balance to your exact point. It's taking a step back and asking, how long is it taking us to gather those metrics, gather those data, build those reports? And if it's like, sure, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour a week, and you have 100 people and each person spends 5 minutes, that's reasonable. But then when you start looking at, hey, I have 100-person company and I have a weekly status meeting with all of them there. That's 100 hours of your people's time that could be going to maybe more productive things. And so it's finding a balance, and each company, each scenario is unique. So there's no blanket guidance. It's really first step, take a step back. What are you tracking? How much time does it track? And then the big piece is, what are you doing with that data? What changes are you making? Is it helping you stay on track? Is it helping you make sure your quality stays at a certain level? Is it helping you make sure your employee retention is where you want it? It's those questions that then drive the decision. Are we tracking too much? Are we not tracking enough? Are we even tracking the right things? And it's when you start asking those critical questions, you can reveal so many interesting things because what you track matters. And then how you use it matters even more.
This reminds me of it's not a quote, but I think somebody was once telling me that successful leaders, they don't wait for that 100% information or details. They usually make a decision on like maybe 70% information, and then they move forward with that. So they don't wait for that full information. They just wait for enough to make a good decision. And whether it's a wrong decision or the right decision, the point that they made that action allows them to then pivot or change quickly rather than sitting back there. When it comes down to like the decision making, like how much you have to like wait for, can you be a little more risky and take that action with less information? Where do you think is the sweet spot?
The word is risk. Exactly what you said. Finding what the risk is between waiting and not waiting. For a lot of the software development tech work we did, we would have clients that would say, hey, I really need this thing done. And I have a general idea of what I want. We could wait, do studies, we could dig into the problem space and do that for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and then start building. Or we could prototype, give them something after 2 weeks. Might miss the mark entirely, or might be exactly on point, but might need iterations. And so, if you're able to experiment, if you're able to give something in the hands of someone, that both reduces risk of the timeline of delivery as well as are you on point or not. Now, if it's a multi-million dollar effort where you're deciding, do I invest in this strategy, this software, this new merger, then sure, you want to figure out how much risk is tolerated. And that really comes down to all those different variables. And so the number one thing I always encourage leaders to do is it more risky to wait? Is it more risky to not? And is there that balance somewhere in between? And if you can experiment, if you can take a couple calculated small steps to reduce that risk, to align better, that's the sweet spot.
And I know you're pretty equipped for risk analysis and decision making because I know we had talked previously about how you have over 600 skydiving jumps. So, talk to me about that and how that helps you develop better leaders.
Sure. It's exactly as you're saying. When you can take a situation and start thinking about what the actual risk is. For skydiving in the US, there's about 10 deaths out of 3 million jumps. Sure, no one wants to die. I don't want to die. But when you look at the statistical odds, that's not terrible. The statistical odds for driving a car is pretty dang high as well. And so you can use those type of things to calculate risk. And then you can also look at what are the systems and structures in place. One of the reasons I got my skydiving license was the skydiving drop zone I did it at down in Virginia called Orange Skydive is very, very big on learning, education, and safety. And when I saw the systems, teaching, and structure they had in place, it reduced that risk significantly for me because I knew that that was their mindset. That was the frame of reference. And so when you look at things again in decision making, what systems are in place, what decision making processes, what conversations are being had that can reduce that risk to illuminate and bring to the forefront some of the that data points, some of those statistics that might give you a clearer picture. And so through each skydive, it's cool. What do we have to do to reduce risk, to increase fun, decrease any type of hazard happening? And it's finding those critical points. As a quick anecdote for skydiving, the main things we always talk about: how are you leaving the plane as a group? At what altitude are we all breaking off to get separation? And at what altitude are we deploying our parachutes? And those three key points aren't really the heart of the skydive. This part of the skydive's happening 60 seconds in between. But those are the key points where risk, where danger, where things can go wrong the greatest. And so when you identify not the entire plan, but the key failure points, the key points that can have the most risk, and then focus those efforts, that's when you can reduce maybe not 100%, but you get it down to 30, 20, 10%. And then you can make steps forward as soon as possible.
So I love that. And I love the whole skydiving thing, dude. You got a lot of crazy things going on, and I love chatting with you. So what can we get excited about hearing from or seeing from you for this year? Because time of recording, we're kind of early into 2026, but still a lot of year left. Like, what major projects or things are you looking forward to for yourself and your business?
Sure. So on the skydiving side, funny enough, I'm not a coach yet, but I'm finally doing my skydiving coaching certification in April. So I'm very excited to add another level of coaching to what I offer and to use some of those experiences in coaching to the working world, to business, and to leadership as well. And then in general, I think what I'm really excited for is I've been really pivoting a little bit more into things like podcasts and keynotes. Remember now, as I've gotten onto some of these conversations, the joy I have sharing messaging to really connect stories in my own personal life and growth with others. And so that's part of the plan this year, to really get out into larger audiences, share some more fun, more stories, more ideas for how people can think a little bit differently and grow a little bit differently. And so that's kind of the thing I'm most excited for. But of course, just having many more opportunities to work with individuals, work with companies to get them from that good to great to exceptional. Because when I see that aha moment, when I see someone light up that they just thought something differently, they learned a little bit, they became more, that's what's the most meaningful for me.
I love that. And for people who are listening, and if they're interested in hiring you to come in to either speak at their event, their conference, or to bring you in to talk to their team, or maybe even one on one, if you have room for more one on one clients, that is, how do people get in touch with you? How do they stay up to date with where you're going, what you're doing, kind of thing?
Sure, two ways. One, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, sharing a lot of ideas, stories, and frameworks for the problems I hear from leaders. When I get their permission, when I have the opportunity, I love sharing back out into the community. So connect with me there. And then also my website, wiserwithjoe.com, wiser with a Y, because the why is the most important thing. That's where I love to start. And you can find out about the keynotes, the workshops. And as Rob, you mentioned, I do one on one coaching occasionally. And so you can find all the different fun things I'm doing on my website as well.
Awesome. Well, Joe, I appreciate you coming on, sharing a bit about your experience, and definitely sharing a lot of value through the insights and things that you're teaching other people. So I appreciate you coming on, especially with busy times and things going on. But before I let you go, I got one final question I'd love to ask you.
Sure.
So, someone listening right now, because the show is surviving the side hustle. So, there's a lot of people who are building some kind of business. Maybe they're growing or scaling their business, or maybe they just have like a hobby project that they're working on the side of their 9 to 5, and they're struggling to balance a lot of different things. And maybe they're feeling overwhelmed and unsure if they're focusing on the right things in their life and business. What kind of advice would you give them? What would be like the first step you tell them to take?
The first step I would take is write down your why for who you are, what you want to be, what you're trying to accomplish, and then write down the list of things that you're currently doing, working on, those things in life. And look at that why, look at that, and connect the ones that actually serve that purpose, serve your why. And you're most likely going to find that there's stuff on that list that isn't really serving your why, aren't part of the priority. And the challenge is, how do you cut those out? But when you start connecting to your why and you can recognize some of those other things aren't connected, that's when you can start freeing up your time, your energy, and your focus to the things that are your priorities that will get you to where you want to go in life.
Oh, I love it. Joe, again, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And love chatting with you and love to have you back on in the future.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Rob. Enjoyed the conversation.
All right, sweet. That's a wrap on this week's episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. If this conversation gave you something that you can use, would you do me a favor and follow the show? And then please leave a quick rating and review wherever you listen. It genuinely helps more entrepreneurs find these stories, and it helps spread the word of our guests. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, do us both a favor and share the episode their way. You can connect with me and find everything that we mentioned over at survivingthesidehustle.com. Until next time, remember, pay attention to what works for you and then do more of that. That's how you stop spinning and start winning.